Louis Kahn was one of the most influential architects of the 20th century, and his work can be understood through his focus on form, material, and light. Born in Estonia, he immigrated to the United States and first gained recognition as a professor at Yale University. His travels through Italy, Greece, and Egypt shaped his interest in timeless architecture and the power of natural light. While designing the Esherick House, Kahn was also working on the Salk Institute, further developing these ideas at different scales. At the time, design was dominated by the influence of modernism and international style, led by architects like Ludwig Mies van der Rohe, which emphasized glass, steel, and minimalism. However, this approach was starting to feel too cold and uniform. Kahn reacted against this by introducing weight, materiality, and a sense of timelessness back into his work. The Margaret Esherick House in Philadelphia was commissioned by Margaret Esherick and designed by Louis Kahn between 1959 and 1961. The house clearly emphasizes Kahn's signature focus on light, materiality, and spatial clarity. His approach to spatial organization is evident in the division between served and servant spaces. The street facade feels closed and solid, but the interior spaces are shaped by light and warmth. This contrast suggests a lifestyle centered on reflection rather than spectacle, and it feels especially appropriate for its location in a quiet Philadelphia neighborhood. Prior to the Esherick House, Kahn designed a studio for Margaret's uncle, Wharton Esherick. This connection to her uncle, a master woodworker, adds a personal layer of craft that makes the house feel lived in. The design reflects the client, Margaret Esherick, a bookstore owner who valued books, craftsmanship, and solitude. The emphasis on built-in shelving, intimate rooms, and controlled views suggests a home designed for reading and contemplation. Like many of Kahn's projects, the Esherick House reflects core principles such as spatial organization, manipulation of natural light, and expressive material use.
The Esherick House focuses on spatial hierarchy as shown through served versus servant spaces. The served spaces are the primary living areas, for example, the living room, bedroom, or kitchen, whereas the servant spaces contain supporting functions like stairs, bathrooms, and storage. In this house, that distinction is not just conceptual, but physically expressed. Kahn designed a large, open living volume which dominates the overarching design, while a narrow, vertical band along one side compresses all the served functions, compressing them as much as possible so as not to draw attention away from the served spaces. This creates a clear hierarchy in which the main space feels prominent and everything else is secondary. The organization of the house is especially strong in the section view. At the ground level, the entry is intentionally compressed and slightly hidden within the servant zone. Rather than immediately bringing a guest into the main living space, Kahn creates a sense of transition in anticipation. As you move upward or inward, the house opens dramatically into a double-height living room, which acts as the central primary or served space. This room is filled with natural light and feels expansive despite the house's small footprint and relatively simple design. Above this level, the sleeping areas become more enclosed and intimate, offering a sense of privacy while still maintaining a relationship to the main space below, furthering the connection between all the served spaces. Overall, the vertical sequence moves from tight and controlled to open and then back to more private, allowing the private spaces to feel intimate and public spaces the opposite. In plan, the house is more or less divided into two parallel zones. One zone is the large open living area at the front, which occupies the full height and width of the main volume and remains mostly uninterrupted by partitions. The other zone is the narrow servant band running alongside it, which contains the circulation and service elements. This side band acts like a spine, organizing movement and infrastructure without interfering with the openness of the main space. By separating these functions so clearly, Kahn allows the living area to feel calm and unified while keeping the practical elements out of view. Circulation through the house is deliberately indirect and reinforces this zoning strategy. Entry occurs through the servant zone rather than directly into the main living space, and movement is guided along the edges instead of through the center. The stairs are also tucked into the service band, further emphasizing its supporting role. This arrangement creates a sequence of compression and release. You move through tighter, darker spaces before arriving into the large, light-filled living room. The experience is carefully choreographed to heighten the sense of contrast and discovery. Each zone within the house has a distinct spatial character. The main living space is tall and open and almost monumental in feeling, even though it's actually relatively small. The servant spaces are compact and efficient, designed for function rather than experience, meant to push you into the open spaces. The sleeping areas fall somewhere in between, offering a more intimate scale while still connecting visually and spatially to the larger living volume. This variation in scale and atmosphere contributes to the overall sense of hierarchy and organization. Underlying all of this is a clear structural and geometric order. The house is organized according to a disciplined grid, with structural elements aligning closely with the spatial zones. The servant band is not only functionally distinct, but also structurally defined, and the placement and proportion of openings are carefully controlled. This gives the house a sense of precision and inevitability, where every element appears intentional.
The Esherick house is a 2-story rectangular home organized into 4 side-by-side volumes. These volumes reflect the division between served and servant spaces, which alternate across the plan, creating a clear spatial hierarchy and rhythm throughout it. The exterior is made of thick concrete masonry walls with a stucco finish, giving the house a heavy, solid appearance. In contrast, the interior is primarily wood, which makes the space feel warmer and more inviting. The kitchen, which was designed by Margaret Esherick's uncle, Wharton Esherick, uses wood and copper materials. This contrast between exterior heaviness and interior softness is central to the spatial experience of the house. As you approach the front of the house, you are met with a solid 2-story front wall. The entry is offset from the center, cut into the mass, and pushed back into the building, splitting the front facade into 2 distinct planes. Each plane has an asymmetrical T-shaped window, adding variation to the otherwise rigid geometry. The rear facade follows the same overall massing, but instead of being solid, it opens up with large, symmetrical floor-to-ceiling windows. This creates a strong contrast between the front and the back. On the east and west sides of the home, chimneys protrude outward in a repeating pattern, reinforcing the rhythm and repetition of the overall form. Internally, proportion plays a critical role. The served spaces share consistent rectangular proportions and similar massing, emphasizing their importance. This hierarchy is most evident in the living room, which rises through 2 stories, creating a dramatic vertical volume that distinguishes it from the more compressed servant spaces. Overall, the Esherick house demonstrates a careful balance between solidity and openness, repetition and variation, and hierarchy and rhythm, which are all essential to this project.
As previously mentioned, the influence of the international style meant that the Esherick house incorporated glass, steel, and minimalism. But a primary theme that emerged from Kahn's design choices was to ultimately counteract the cold and rigid effect by incorporating warm materials and light. Commissioned by bookseller Margaret Esherick, the house was designed with both her profession and Kahn's vision. Rejecting glass-box modernism, he instead developed an inward-focused design that favors reflection over display. This is achieved through the organization of interior spaces, controlled views, and a prioritization of privacy and quiet inhabitation. The result is a house that feels contemplative and introspective rather than outwardly expressive. Perhaps one of the most central components of Kahn's critical approach is his treatment of light. In primary spaces such as the living room, Kahn controlled the natural light through a T-shaped spatial configuration formed by large bookcases in the north walls. These elements not only shape how light enters the space, but also frame specific views outward. Light is further controlled through deep-set windows and adjustable wooden shutters, which provide privacy, ventilation, and variation in illumination. In this way, light is not simply added to the space, but rather it is shaped by the structure itself. This strategy contributes to the facade that reflects Kahn's belief that a building should not have a singular front or back, but instead maintain consistency and intentionality on all sides. Wall thickness also plays a crucial role in shaping the spatial experience. Kahn contrasts thinner, more transparent surfaces with heavier, more solid walls. This choice relates to the organization of the home in having major served spaces emphasize more than the servant spaces. The windows placed in these thicker walls, in turn, have a greater sense of depth, create spaces that function as alcoves or seating areas, and enhance the sense of depth and enclosure. These moments further emphasize the inward-focused quality of the house, while giving the building a sense of permanence and monumentality that contrasts sharply with the thinness of a glass box modernism. Finally, wood is used throughout the house as a means of reinforcing warmth and human skill. Rather than serving as mere decoration, wood is integrated into built-in furniture, window linings, interior wall surfaces, and spatial edges. As a result, it shapes how the house is physically occupied and how one is to interact with the space. Ultimately, the wood was used to create an inviting, habitable experience that creates a transition between inside and outside and ties into the human scale.